Hello, 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 everybody. It's Susie McMahon, and here we are back again within, I think, 72 hours with a new virtual book club conversation with, let's see if the finger, no, it doesn't work right. Everybody, wave, Joe. Wait, I need you to wave. There we go. The
Hello,
reverse camera
everybody.
always throws me off. That's Joe Palmer, and he's down in Florida. I'll let him talk about that more. And then we have Francine Katzen. Francine, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Joe. Hi, Susie.
Hello.
Right on. So Francine, of course, is one of my virtual book club group experts, and Joe Palmer just happens to be our featured author right now, which has lots of connections, and you can talk about that later. But I'm going to read his bio first. Okay. So Joe Palmer. No, but Joe, you say hi a little bit more. What's it like down there? I'm going to wait for a few more people to try to trickle in. What's it like where you are, weather-wise?
Weather-wise, right now it is 82 degrees. It was 91 at the high today. The humidity was really stinking high. I mean, it was just stifling. I normally take the Great Dane, Harley, who just walked into the room. I usually take Harley to the beach for a walk in the afternoon, but it was too hot for either of us this afternoon. So we're just kind of hanging out around the house. He's fretting because he didn't get to go for his beach walk, but he's getting old now and he's on heart medication and everything. So I don't want to stress the old boy out too much. But
yeah,
now he's decided to come in. He'll start messing with me at some point during this thing. I guarantee you he's going to be poking at me or something.
Right. And Francine, do you have a dog? I can't remember.
No.
No.
I don't have a dog.
Do you have a cat?
No animals.
All right, just check.
There my big boy is.
Oh, he's a monster, a big giant.
He is huge. We've had 5 Danes, and he's by far and away the biggest. He's bigger than the average Dane.
Okay. All right. Well, I was going to slow down a little bit because the other night when I interviewed Dana, I just went like a rocket and it went by way too fast. So it's just now 7:03 on the East Coast, and we are live with Joe Palmer. And when anyone joins us, please look at the StreamYard notes. Basically, that's saying if you make a comment, it's only going to come across as Facebook user unless you give StreamYard permission to show your name. So if you don't want to do that, you're not signing up for anything. But bottom line, you want to say who you are and where you're watching from if you have a specific question. And our goal is to have this as interactive as possible. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and read Joe's bio. Oh, and by the way, I'm sitting at the Pat Connery Literary Center. Anybody hear that place?
Ooh,
I'm like, I'm honored to be sitting here.
We just wish we were there with you.
I know, right on. Okay.
I will be tomorrow.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Anyway, okay. So Joe Palmer, everybody, is an award-winning former newspaper reporter and longtime columnist whose folksy column, Cup of Joe, The Cup of Joe? I got to interrupt. From TV?
Oh, no. That was just the name of my column, Cup of Joe.
Oh, okay.
I have no claim to fame as far as that goes. No.
Okay. All right. So whose folksy column, Cup of Joe, ran for 10 years in the Fernandina Beach News Leader with a large and enthusiastic following. He's written investigative reporting and feature stories for the Bradenton Herald, the Macon Telegraph, and News, and the Macon Telegraph and News, and the Florida Times Union. A Navy veteran, thank you for your service, and medical corpsman, he went on to work as a surgeon's assistant at St. Vincent's Medical in Jacksonville. While attending college for this BA from the University of North Florida for his, is there a typo on the back here? Oh, okay. He parlayed his investigative experience into a 20-year career as an investigator for the Federal Public Defender's Office. A sailor, he got the idea for his debut novel while working on an antique sailboat that he and his wife painstakingly restored. That's pretty impressive, eh?
Yeah, it was fun.
You want to talk about the boat a little bit before Francine asks the first question?
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
I'd always wanted to be a sailor. I mean, of course, I was a sailor in the Navy, but not in the sailing sense, But I'd always wanted to have a sailboat, and I had nothing but little small fishing boats up until that point. And so, opportunity came up for me to buy this little 25-foot long swing keel Catalina sailboat, and it had such a shallow draft that you could basically float it in your bathtub. And so Pam and I got it for a really good deal from some guy over at Kings Bay Navy Sub Base. And we didn't have much fixing up to do on it. So we spent our time just sort of playing and sailing around locally on the backwaters and stuff around here. But I was at the marina one afternoon doing some bright work on it, and which is what you call them when you work on all the metals and stuff. That's the bright work. And I was polishing up some steel, and the marina operator came down and said, "Hey, would you like to have a bigger boat?" Somebody around the marina said you would like to have a bigger boat at some point. And I said, "Well, sure." He goes, "Well, go down the sea dock. There's one down there." And he said, "You can't miss it. It's this big old ugly hulk sitting there." And he goes, "But it's a great boat. It'd be a good fixer-upper." And I said, "Well, I'll go look at it." So I did. And I walked down, and I had no idea what kind of boat this was. And but it was in nasty condition. I mean, I opened up the hatch to the inside. It was horrible. And my wife and I are fixer-upper people. So I called her. She came down and looked at it. She goes, "We could do this." And I said, "Okay, it'll take a lot of sweat labor." Well, while we're looking at it, this guy that lived on a sailboat, he's deceased now, but he lived on a boat that was 2 boats behind where this boat was, comes walking over to us and says, "You got to buy that boat." He sounded like Buddy Hackett. And I said, "I'm thinking about it." He goes, "You got to buy that boat. It's a cow." I thought he said cow, C-O-W. But what he said was it was a cow, C-A-L. And it was made by a boat company called Cal Boat Works in Southern California. And they're rare around here. It's hard to find one. And this one was a 1968 model, so which puts it in the antique range by far and away. And so we started working on it. That became my day job. I retired in April of 2012 and started working on this boat. And that was my day job every day until I was ready for it to be a fun job, not a day job anymore. But it's a great boat. I just sold it about 3 years ago. We weren't sailing as much anymore, and the dock fees were getting crazy. And a buddy of mine who sails wanted to buy it from me. And so we took it out during a storm. He wanted to go sailing in a storm for a shakedown cruise. So we took it out in a storm with about 30, 35 mile an hour winds, and the seas coming at us from all directions, and thundering and lightning. But we took it out for about 4 hours and had a great time. Had water coming over the cockpit 2 or 3 times. But we got back to the marina, and he liked it and wrote me a check for it. So here we are. It's now formerly my boat. I can still sail it when I want to. He's given me permission. Just take it when you want to. The one thing that kills me about it was Pam and I were housekeeping fanatics, and everything on that boat was spotless. I mean, you could have eaten your food off the deck. It was that clean. And Courtney's a great sailor, but a horrible housekeeper. So now we got this lovely old boat sitting out there with moldy walls and dirty sails, and the floor is dirty and the deck is dirty. And sometimes I get frustrated. I'll go down to check on it. I just take the water hose and blow it all off. I was going to give it a cleaning one day, and Pam said, "No, don't you dare do that. That isn't even your boat anymore."
Yep. All right. Well, that sounds good about the boat. I'm going to let Francine ask the first question, and I'm going to check on some of the comments that I have over here. So, Francine, the floor is yours. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much, Susie.
You're welcome.
Well, first of all, Joe, congratulations on your book, your debut. Awesome. I loved it. Loved the story. So did this story originate while you were working on this boat, like when that was your day job? And how did you come up with the idea of this kid breaking in and all of that? Where did this come from? Did this something happen to you or
Um,
somebody you know?
no, I started out, and I think Susie and I had an earlier conversation about this. I was just laying up some fiberglass one afternoon, and it was really hot outside.
Mhm.
And there's an old guy that works on boat who he reminded me of Jack Merkel when I was writing the story. So that's who I based my character for Jack Merkel on.
Oh,
And he was very patient about teaching you things. But he was teaching me how to lay fiberglass and said, don't ever lay fiberglass up when it's 101 degrees outside. It'll cook off. It won't work. I ignored him and tried to do it. Of course, got the same result. And it almost caught on fire one time. The resin got so hot. So
dear.
I threw my hands up and I sat down and I was listening to some music on my iPod. There's a recording artist named Mark Knopfler. He was the front man for Dire Straits. And he writes these songs that are just poetic. They're beautiful. And there's this one song called In the Sky. And there's this beautiful line in it that says, a vagabond wind whispered over the bay. The songs and the laughter were carried away. And it's about an old man who builds a sailboat and sails all over the world. And finally, he's at the end of his life and he's looking back on it and everything. I went home that night and told Pam, I'm going to write a novel, and I already know the name of it. I'm going to call it Vagabond Wind. And so I just started writing, Francine. I had no idea where I was going at first. I knew it's like sailing. You're at point A and you want to get to point B, but unless there's a perfect wind, you're not going to get from point A to point B. You got to tack this way and that way and this way and that way. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing, was just going along. It was probably a couple of weeks before I kind of figured out where I was going. As far as the character Doug, I identified pretty much with Doug. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. So the treatment Doug got was worse than the treatment that he got from his father obviously was worse than what I got from mine. But that's who I identify with in the story, is the character Doug.
I love that guy wanted to have him pay back and was given a break. I mean, we all know somebody that's gotten a good break in their life, and we've all been grateful for it.
Mhm.
I remember my daughter got one time, and I will be forever grateful for that. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Did you write the novel from beginning to end, or did you write it in parts? Like, how did you write it? Like, start with the story and just go all the way through it, or did you just do like the big middle and then go backwards? Or
I just ran straight through it. I didn't even look back. Once I hit my stride with it,
Mm-hmm.
I just wrote straight through. I'm not a real disciplined writer. I mean, I knew there are authors out there who set their alarm clock for 4 o'clock in the morning and get up and write till it's 11 o'clock. Or they'll write for 3 hours in the afternoon at a set time. Joe doesn't work that way. I write when the muse hits me to write. And once I start writing, I'll write every day, but I don't have a particular time of the day when I write. I just go at it until I wear out. My fingers get too heavy on the keyboard, or I get distracted. Once I start getting distracted, I just quit for the day.
Start over the next day.
Start over the next day. And
Right on.
there's
Right on. Oh, go ahead.
there's a thing that Stephen King wrote a book about writing novels, about the writing process itself. And one of the things he talked about was writer's block. And he said the best way to end your day when you're writing, the best way to end your day is to find something that you're really, really, really turned on about, and you're writing about it, and stop in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And he says, because when you come back to it, your brain's still working on it. And so you don't get writer's block. So I found that to be a lot of helpful advice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I am noticing that part of the new technology that StreamYard has, we're not only going live on my page, but all of the authors that I interviewed before, for some reason, on YouTube show live. So I don't know. Anyway, we're out there recording, and this is a great conversation. So we're going to see how things end up. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but hey, if we can have that
Hey,
much broadband, let's do it, right?
well, let's get back to
Joe,
Susan. What else she's got?
yeah, well, I wanted to ask you more about
Oh, okay.
your investigative. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Can you
you.
hear me? Okay. I wanted you to tell me more about your investigative reporter days.
Oh, well, when I was a young reporter, all young reporters for their first job get stuck on the cop beat, they call it. And basically, what I did was follow police officers around at night and wrote crime stories. The crime stories, as I learned more and more and more about the inner workings of the criminal justice system and who all the crooks in town were and the con men and all that kind of stuff, I started getting more and more into the investigative reporting, where I would dig into something and start trying to find if there's an angle to it that's buried beneath the surface that nobody knows about. Like we had this sheriff in Bradenton, Florida, who was corrupt. His name was Tom Burton. He was otherwise a good sheriff, very likable sort of guy, but he was corrupt, and he had a corrupt department, and all of his underlings, all of his brass beneath him, they were all crooked. And so another reporter and I decided that's what we were going to dig into, and we spent probably a year researching records and filings, and we'd find things where they'd done this under the table and that under the table. And we wrote about this nonstop, pretty much on a daily basis for about a year. Tom was up for reelection and should have won handily, uh, but he lost. And I think a lot of it was because of the stuff that Brad and I uncovered about his administration ended up costing him the election. So that was the investigative reporting part of it. There were other stories like that out there, but that was mainly how I got into that part of the reporting scene.
Interesting. Francine, I know we were supposed to have a surprise guest tonight, Joe. Have you heard from that individual? I just don't see her in the wings yet.
No,
Okay. It's no rush, but I'm wondering if she has the right link or something. Okay. So Francine, while he's looking that up, tell me about how things are going for you this summer. Have you been back out to California, or have you been mostly in Virginia?
Well, I was in California in March, and then unexpectedly had to go back for the month of May because they had a daycare issue. And so it's been quite busy around here. And I was helping take care of a friend of mine for 8 months who had lung cancer and passed away in April. So it's been kind of hectic. And now I'm getting ready to have a book party on Sunday for Christy Woods and Harvey. So it's
wonderful.
Full. I know. You were Sunday. I had a book party. I intended one last night, and then this, and then Sunday. And I'm like, I'm really happy to be back in the book world with authors and book people, because this is a happy place.
Mary just texted me and said she's on the link.
I see her. She's in the studio. I got her. Hi, Mary Martha.
Hey, right Mary.
On. Oh, wait, it's a surprise. Don't go there yet. Okay, hold on. Francine, Francine, go ahead and ask another question to Joe, and in a minute, we'll introduce our surprise guest.
Okay,
so we weren't supposed to do spoilers. We've got to talk about that. I keep forgetting, Francine. You got to keep me on my toes.
I know.
There are spoilers in this because everyone should have read it already. Oops, if you haven't, guess what? Anytime.
Right.
Well, too bad. We're going to talk about it anyway, and if you haven't read it, you're going to find out stuff there that you didn't know, or will know when you read it. So,
right on.
So, Joe, tell me what it was like writing a woman character. Was that easy for you? Difficult? Took a lot of time? How was that for you?
I am so glad you asked that question. I mean, being married for nearly 50 years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've been around.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. And having daughters-in-law and that kind of stuff, and working around female reporters in the newspaper rooms and stuff. I mean, I had an idea about being around a lot of women and what their thought processes were and this kind of stuff, but it was still difficult to write about them. And so I wasn't making them whole enough. I wasn't making Margie Waller quite whole enough. And so I sent out my book after I'd gotten done writing it and doing as much editing on it as I could. I sent it out to an editor, and when she finished editing it, she wrote me back with all of the things that she found that I should address. And one of them was Margie, the female character. And she said, you need to flesh her out, and you need to put some life in her. You need to give her some agency here. You need to make her as visible on that page as Jack Merkel is, because you haven't done a very good job with that.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, you pay people to tell you what's wrong, and they tell you what's wrong. I mean, what can you say? So she said, my suggestion to you would be to hang out at the park or on a bench downtown, or go to places where women are sort of gathering, go to the afternoon happy hour or something, sit at a table nearby where there are a bunch of women talking, and eavesdrop and pick up on the way women interact with each other, the things they say and the kinds of things they do. And I'm thinking, this sounds kind of sexist, but okay. And besides that, I don't know if I want to be caught sitting at a table ogling women at another table. Anyway, this is a small town. People talk. But she was right. And it ended up being, it was a lot of fun doing that. And it absolutely helped. It was difficult. Like I said in the beginning, it was difficult making Margie Waller a three-dimensional person until Judy called my attention to some things that I could be doing. So to answer your question, yes, it was a little difficult writing about a female character.
Well, I think you did a great job, and I'm glad you listened to Judy.
Yeah.
And got her alive on that page, because she was a great character.
Marjorie, yeah. Marjorie. Judy, Marjorie. Actually, Judy, the lady who edited the book's name was Judy.
That's what I meant. I'm glad she
said,
give you some constructive criticism. As you said, you pay them to tell you what's wrong, and they tell you, and it just makes it better.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I mean, you got to do that. Yes. What was, I asked you a question. What, did you have a particular part of the book that you liked?
Me or her, Francine?
Well,
are you asking? Here. Francine, answer. I'm ready to surprise guest. Go ahead. What was your favorite? I wanted to hear more about just the young hoodlum who broke into the marina. I like that piece of it.
Well, I like that
the very beginning.
We've all known young kids have had issues. I mean, I had a young kid one time that had issues. Thank God above, she has become a great human being now. But there was a time in our lives where I didn't think she would live to be a human being. So that kind of tugged at my heart. And the fact that he was willing to give this kid a chance, it was just, I mean, that's how we all should be living life, is helping others and doing for others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my dad preached that to us our whole life, about helping others in time of need, not just when it's happy, but during the bad times and sickness. And even if it's not your family, step up and help. And as I said, I had the opportunity to do that with a friend for 8 months. And I learned a lot about myself, about what I was capable of doing, helping others. And I don't know, that part was just really good.
Thank you. What were you going to say?
The heart of the matter.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's just the heart It's the heart of the matter. What I love about it is, I am a granddaughter and niece of sailors. My grandfather was in the Navy as well. He was in the Pacific. He came down from Connecticut to the Low Country in the 60s. And he had his first, second, third, I don't know how many different boats, but we all know that boats are a very big expense, but they bring a lot of life, a lot of delight in everyone's life. He had his first boat over at South Beach, and then he over there on the Big Island, and then he had one at Harbor Town. And my uncle that lives down in the Panhandle and also up in Atlanta has a sailboat as well. And I think that's the heart of the matter for me, is just being out on the water and enjoying the breeze and everything that takes place on the water. So that's my comment on that. And with no further ado, though, Joe, I want you to start introducing your surprise guest that you're recommending back to the Virtual Book Club, because we have featured her before. I think it was 2022, and I'm going to go ahead and have you start, and then I'm going to pull her on stage. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I am very happy to be able to say tonight, and I may have already leaked the information out there somewhere, that Mary Martha Green is joining us. Mary Martha Green being the cheese biscuit queen, the lady who tells all. In fact, that's the name of the book, isn't it, Mary? The Cheese Biscuit Queen Tells All.
It's the name of the first one.
It's the name of the first one. But now she's got a new one out called Kiss My Aspic. I just love that title.
Me too.
That's the first one. The Cheese Biscuit Queen Tells All, and then the Cheese Biscuit Queen Kiss My Aspic came out in February of this year. So thank y'all for having me on tonight.
Yeah, I went to get a copy. I went around the Story and Song to get a copy because Donna said, yeah, we got some. As it turned out, they didn't have any there in the warehouse.
Oh.
So I had to order them. So I haven't gotten to read it yet. I was hoping by the time we did this tonight, I would have had a chance to read it. But I know it's probably as funny, if not funnier, than the first one.
Well,
I have a hard time cooking, falling over some of her stories. My God.
When the first one came out, it just sort of had short stories in it, and people liked the stories so much that with this one, they asked me to do longer stories, and then they're two recipes that sort of follow each story. The stories may not be as closely linked as they were in the first book, but there's some pretty funny stories in there. Some names had to be changed to protect the innocent, guilty, whatever you want to call them. But there's some pretty fun stories in there. So
just like in my book, I had in A Mariner's Tale, I have a couple of local characters in there that I had to blur the lines a little bit, keep their anonymity, so to speak.
That's important in small town America. Sorry for me to interrupt, right? We got to have some anonymity. So, Joe, what I normally do now between Joe and Mary Martha Green, I have the two of you ask each other a question, then Francine's going to interject, and then I'll come back in a little bit. So you have the floor. Joe, ask Mary a question. Thank you.
Where did you come up with all these stories? I mean, you must have spent years collecting all these stories. Either that or you've got a memory like none other.
Well, a mutual friend of ours says I have a real memory and a real memory for details. But, my grandmother, my mother's mother, who I own her house now in Beaufort. I'm not down there tonight. I'm in the Columbia house tonight. But when my grandmother retired the year that I was born, so she's from teaching. So she went from having 40, 50 kids in the classroom to having my older brother and I as her retirement project. And we would sit in the car, Mom and Daddy didn't always want to take us in places when they wanted to run in somewhere quick. And so we'd sit in the car with my grandmother, and she would start making up a story about somebody, that was going in the store or something. It may be somebody we had never seen before, would never see again. But Grandmommy would start making up, well, she's going in the grocery store. What do you think she's going to do? Well, in mine and my brother's little mind, somebody was always on the verge of making a cake. So we're like, well, I think she's going to make a cake. Well, what's the cake for? Well, it's for her birthday. And we'd be on this big tangent about a birthday cake that may be for a birthday party that may or may not be ever happening. But I think that, gave me a lifelong love of stories and of the little details I think that make stories interesting. And so that's really kind of where it started. And then when my college roommate and we were rooming together in college, I kind of taught her that. And most of the stories we made up about people in college were not nearly as nice as the ones my grandmother and I would make up. And then when her children came along, who are my godchildren, and we had to go back to the sort of nice, sweeter grandmommy stories. But my college roommate and I still live in the same town, and we'll be out and we'll see somebody that we made a story up about years ago and go, now, did they really do that? Or was that a story we made up in college? So sometimes we have to stop and think, but I've always loved stories and just, for good or bad, I can remember stories about people. So some of them I've made up, but for good or bad, I can typically remember stories about people. So.
Yeah, I have a hard time remembering the ones that I made up and the ones that are real anymore. I think that every now and then Pam will say, did that really happen? I mean, I've heard this story so many times that every time you tell it different. So did this really happen?
Stephen
Sometimes
Colbert,
I just don't remember.
Stephen Colbert and Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper, has that podcast about grief that's just, if your listeners hadn't listened to it, it's just fabulous. And my favorite of all of them is the one with Stephen Colbert. And Stephen Colbert, his brother and his dad and two of his brothers were killed when he was young. And he tells a story that happened not long before his dad and his brothers passed away. And he said, I've told that story so many times over the years that I'm the last one that remembers whether that really happened or not. So I think it's important to tell those stories and to get them down so that, you're not the only one that remembers the stories. And then I kind of felt like that with these two books I wanted to get them down so I wouldn't be the last one to remember it or so that my godchildren and my cousins' children would have those stories to hand down to their folks when I'm no longer around. So
I get it. My little granddaughter made sure that there was a copy of A Mariner's Tale in the library at school.
Oh, how
You
sweet.
got to put a book in there. And she talks to me all the time. So-and-so today said they read your book. So-and-so they said they read your book. Their mommy was reading your book. Their daddy's reading your book.
Oh.
And then she said, Daddy says you have the best stories to tell. And I said, yeah, but ask him how many of them are real.
Yeah. Well,
we gild the lily a little bit. Okay.
In the South, I think, there's always, there was a guy named Ken Berger who used to write for the Charleston Post and Courier. And when I was very early on getting interested in my writing career, I heard him speak at a conference and somebody would always ask him, he was a columnist for the Post and Courier, but then he wrote books after he retired. And he said, somebody asked him one time, were those stories true? And he said, well, about a third of them happened to me. About a third of them happened to people I knew, and about a third of them I just made up. So, I figured that might be a pretty good rule of thumb, is a third, a third, a third. So
yeah, that's what I did with my column for the newspaper when I was writing it. I would just make things up and tell the story as if it were true.
with a column, you can do
Oh
that.
my gosh, is that that's controversial these days?
Sorry, in the old days, you used to have to have.
Am I talking over you, Mary? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
You should tell the truth and always the truth. No fake stuff. Okay. I'm reeling this in, guys. We're running out of time. So, hey, Francine, I want you to ask Mary a question. And then I'm going to have you guys, everyone talk about what they're currently working on or in the future. That's always part of what I normally do. But Mary, I also need to know, you need to email me and let me know when you want to be featured for this once a month. We're going into the fall or winter. So we'll talk about that. Okay. All right. Perfect. Or maybe in person, I may need to have some more cheese biscuits or whatever else that you make. Maybe the shrimp and tater tots sound good to me. The bean and corn salad.
That lemon cake.
Onion, the whole thing sounds good. And I think I'm just going to buy this today and take it home and look at it. Anyway, Francine, ask Mary Martha Green a question.
Hey, Francine, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's so great to see you here. So congratulations on your second book. That's exciting. So how was this book coming out different from your other book? Was this more exciting, more stressful? How was it for you?
I felt like I knew a little bit more about what I was doing with this book. And, and if anybody asked you to write your second book, especially the same publisher, you feel like, well, people must have liked the first one.
Yeah.
And just to digress a minute, Francine, I know you love my lemon pound cakes. I made some. I don't know if you can see them right here, but they're little baby bunt lemon pound cakes for a friend's birthday tomorrow. So actually his birthday was today, but I didn't get back in Columbia to get them made till today. So he's getting them tomorrow. So he said that'd be great because he didn't have to share them with all the people that would drop by for his birthday. So I'm going to get them to him tomorrow. But I just kind of felt like I knew a little bit more about what I was doing with this book. I felt like people liked the stories in the first book. So, and that they wanted, my publisher said they definitely wanted longer ones. I had a little bit more confidence with the recipes. The first book has a lot of my family recipes in it. So, and the second one does too, but like I had my grandmother's recipes, my mom's recipes, my Aunt Mimi's recipes, and I tried to go through and kind of get some consistency to them. Cynthia Graubert had been very kind and sitting down with me early on with the first one, trying to help me how to figure out how to write a recipe. And I thought I'd gotten some consistency until I got the draft back from the first editor and realized I had not. So I tried to feel like I knew a little bit more about writing recipes, and because they wanted longer stories, I could, not a whole lot of character development, but I think there are enough stories about like my grandmother and my Aunt Mimi and my mom and my dad and my brother that I think y'all will see some character development, or at least know a lot more about them over the course of the books. And as a friend of mine told me Friday night, she says, it's a friend I've met since they've all passed away. And she said, reading this book makes me wish I had known your family. But they're just a big typical Southern family that I think you can see. I think people can read both these books and see pieces and parts of either their families or friends that they've known over the years. So I just felt like I knew a little bit more what I was doing with this one than the first one. So,
well, that's great.
Nice.
Yes, I do love your lemon pound cake. And you reminded me that I can make smaller ones rather than that ginormous one that I made.
Nordic ware bunt pans, the little mini bunt pans. They're great.
Got it. I'll do that.
So thank you, both of you. Hey, Mary, I want you to throw it back to Joe and ask him a question about his current book that we featured this evening. It's all, the ball's in your court.
Well, Joe, we were talking about favorite characters a few minutes ago. My dad was a family court judge, so I think he was one of my favorite characters in your book. So can you talk a little bit more about him, or just how people liked all the legal system stuff that was in the beginning of the book?
Yeah. The Judge J. Harlan Kicklighter. I just love Judge Kicklighter. Because of my experience working in the judicial system, I had lots and lots of material there to work with. But I wanted a judge that was going to be a stick out person in the crowd. I didn't want just your usual black robe sitting behind a desk. I wanted somebody that was a character. And so I took a combination of about 5 or 6 judges that I do know and 3 or 4 attorneys and threw them all in together and sort of took the jar and shook it up, and out came Judge Harlan J. Kicklighter. He appearance-wise, he resembles, although he's not as big of a man, he in the story, Judge Kicklighter is sort of a short, spare guy. In real life, he would be Judge Henry Adams. He's a federal judge that I knew ever since he was a state judge. This big, imposing, and he's got this deep tuba voice, and he's commands authority in the courtroom. So when I was writing about Judge Kicklighter, this was the guy that I had in mind. This was the character I had in mind, because, like I said, I already had all the other material. I just had to go through, do I want to use juvenile court? Do I want to use these kind of records, that kind of records, whatever? So that made it really easy. But yeah, I can see where you would really appreciate the judge, being that your daddy was one.
Soft spot in my heart.
I had to go in front of a couple of those guys too, if I'm going to be bloody honest with myself. But I always got it was the last one I went in front of was a juvenile court judge, and Judge Hodges told me that if I showed up in his courtroom again, he was going to send me down the hall to see Judge Smith, who was the adult court judge. And that kind of, I joined the service right after that. Got out of town.
Wow. Was that the Great Skedaddle? No, that was a long time ago. Okay.
That was the great skedaddle. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Um,
so we are 40 minutes in. How much longer do the three of you want to speak to talk? I'm good for another, whatever. It's up to you.
I'm good. I'd like to hear another question or two about
Mhm.
how did y'all like the ending? The ending is in Ireland, of course.
Ireland is the bomb diggity, the Emerald
I
Isle.
love Ireland.
All I can say is it hits home.
That's one
A little
thing
bit
that
of
I did know when I was
ancestral
writing.
stuff going on there. Anyway.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That was one thing that I did know when I got deep into this novel, where it was going to end.
Oh, you did? You'd already figured that out?
I figured that out I guess about halfway, 2/3 of the way into the story, I figured out where I was going to end the story. And I actually I've been before. We went on a family vacation. We're there for 3 weeks. And then when I decided this is what I'm going to do, I went to Ireland for a week myself and just absorbed as much as I could for the story. There is a village called Dunleary, and it's out on the coast of Dublin. So I took that as the little marina where Doug was working in Ireland. And so I'm familiar with that area. And of course, there's where the elderly lady who took in Doug's sister, Elizabeth, lives in a little village called Terranure. And I went to Terranure and visited Terranure. So I really knew where that story was going, and I was really excited to write about the Ireland part of it. I sent copies. I have a bunch of friends over there, so I did emails to all of them and attached the chapter about Ireland in it, and told them to have at it, just give it their best. Take all the shots you want, slag the hell out of me if you want to, but make sure I got this right. And they did, and they all loved it.
Was that when you developed your love for Guinness, or your new love for non-alcoholic Guinness that's in development?
Oh, my love for Guinness goes way back.
Okay.
No, I discovered the non-alcohol Guinness about 3 years ago doing a show at the Amelia Musical Playhouse here, because I do some amateur acting stuff on the side too. So
that's nice. That's nice.
So
one of my favorite places on God's green earth. So I, of course, I loved all of that.
Yeah.
How many times have you been, Mary?
I've only been once.
How many times have you been there? You've been once. Okay.
To Ireland.
Francine, yeah.
I've never been. It's high up on the list.
Yeah.
Well, you got to do that. It is so nice there. It really is. I mean, it's changed a lot. I mean, it's a lot more modernized than it was. And my friends tell me I was in Ireland in 2017 working on the book, and 2017, and I stayed in Dublin. Dublin's like my favorite big city, and I stayed there. And my friends now are telling me, "My God, Dublin has changed so much since you were here." So, but it's still a great place. It really is. The people are so nice.
Did you ever? Yeah, it's fantastic. I've been there 4 times, I think, and I send lots of clients over there.
Yeah, we were supposed to get back in December, but we had to call our trip off at the last minute. Yeah. Already had all the arrangements made.
Mm-hmm. So, Francine, ask the question that we normally do when we wrap up about what are we reading, what are you working on, all that kind of good stuff. So
okay, so I'll start with Mary. What are you currently reading and like, and what are you working on next? And then after Mary's done, then Joe, you tell us. So Mary, you go ahead first.
I am currently reading Mary Alice Monroe's book, her historical fiction book, Where the Rivers Merge, and loving every minute of it because it's low country and it's set in Beaufort County and Charleston back and forth. So I'm loving that. And I am working on my 3rd cookbook, which is going to be called Cheers and Cheese Biscuits. And it's going to be different occasions during the year, not necessarily your typical holidays, but just fun occasions. And it's going to be 2 cocktails and 5 appetizers. So We're really looking forward to testing all those alcohol. Those my family calls having a cocktail having a cheers. So we're looking forward to having lots of cheers. And we'll have to put some non-alcoholic ones in there for Mr. Palmer, and then there'll be 5 appetizers, for just different occasions during the year. Some friends of mine who have children, some friends of mine who are younger that still have school-age children do a mom's happy hour in August, and there are no holidays in August, so we're going to do a moms and margaritas happy hour like they do, or just a tailgate for football season or adult Halloween party, that kind of stuff. So it'll be fun.
That'll be fun. When can we get this out soon? Like by Christmas?
No, because I've just got to out. Right now, it exists only in an outline and maybe 3 recipes. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds
ideas as I'm going through. I typically do post on my. I'm the Cheese Biscuit Queen on Instagram, and then just Mary M. Green with an E on Facebook. So if folks want to follow me on those, I do typically post a good bit. And it's Green with an E on the end. Greenie, as some friends of mine's children used to call me. So the Cheese Biscuit Queen on Instagram, or Mary M. Green with an E on Facebook. And they can follow along as it progresses along.
Well, that sounds exciting. I can't wait for another book. Oh my gosh. Because my street, we do happy hour here all the time.
Well, maybe I'll some recipes.
We'll be taking them. I mean, we do it we had happy hour here last Friday, and they came at 5 and left at 8:30. I was like,
sounds like my crowd.
Yeah, we used to do them outside, but now it's too hot. We have to come inside because it's 90 degrees. But anyway, so okay, that sounds great. What about you, Joe?
I just got done reading. I'm not reading anything right at the moment. I just got done reading Heaven and Earth Grocery Store.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, what a great book!
Did you like it? I've heard mixed reviews about that.
I loved it. Yeah, I saw some mixed reviews too, but I got to say it's one of the best books that I've read in a long time.
Oh, because my book club was going to read it, and we had several people nix it, so we didn't read it.
You have another book club, Francine?
In person. I have 2. These are in person.
I'm joking.
I have one very active one here.
Person, I understand that.
I have one very active one here, and then the one on the street has fallen apart due to ill friends and that kind of thing. But anyway, so Joe, what are you working on now? Another book?
I have finished the second novel. The title of it is Of Locusts and Wild Honey, and
I like that.
I'm trying to find a literary agent right now who will represent me to hopefully get that one published. A Mariner's Tale was published through Kohler Books in Virginia. It's a little small press, but I wanted to shoot for something a little bigger this time and see what happens. Mm-hmm. I love working with Kohler. They're a great company. I have had a good experience with them for the most part, and but I want to aim a little higher this time, see what I can do.
Go for it.
It's a completely different kind of story than A Mariner's Tale.
Where are they located in Virginia? Do you know?
Virginia Beach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
So that's been taking up a lot of my time lately, writing these query letters and sending out synopses, and then finding out that my query letters, when I was copying them and pasting them, are coming out in block print instead of indented print, and now learning after the fact that it's a problem with Microsoft Word and Windows. So now I've got to get a new computer so I can upgrade to Microsoft 11 because mine's too old to upgrade. So, but I'm hoping I can get somebody to represent me with the story. I sent Mary a rough draft of it. I think she's read it.
Mary, did you finish it? I think I have it in my email box, but it's buried. No, I'm just kidding.
I read the first part of it. I don't know that I ever got the rest of the draft finished, but liked it so for what I read.
I'm wondering if I sent you the whole thing now that I think about it. I might have sent you a partial.
Maybe that's why she didn't finish
it. I have a funny story. I'm going to interrupt, but I remember there was this author that the first time he published a book, it was in all kinds of different things in manuscripts, and it was typed, Pat Conroy, right? The first time he had something published, didn't he have a zillion different looking typer? Tell me that story.
He'd had a whole bunch of different people. Nan Talese, who was his first editor, I think, said, we want it, but you got to have it typed. So they divided it all out all over town, and different people. I know Harriet Keisling, who was our longtime house member in Beaufort, typed it on her personal stationery because that was all she had at the time, or maybe even her legislative stationery. And then, it was on onion skin. It was on all this different stuff, and they filed it all. Of course, then you sent, manuscripts this big and mailed them off. And whoever, I think it was Nan Talese, but they said it was just the cutest thing we'd ever seen. And, different fonts, different spacing, different, I don't think you could get away with that now. Well, everything now is just, and so, but yeah, that's a funny story about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna interject real quick because I talked with Dana the other night, just 2 days ago, whatever. We started talking about AI. And remember Francine, she was saying how it might be helpful for research and things like that, but it should not be you should not be able to use it for college papers or things like that.
Right.
No joke. Today, I was filling out an application for a position for a large conference in France. And I was jumping between an AI, I'm not going to say the one, and my own writing and taking things from my own website and back and forth. And every time I tried to say, change it to my whatever, it wouldn't do it. It blocked me. It was like, boom, no. Error. And I was like, well, maybe they've put some kind of, I don't know, it's way above my pay grade. I don't understand it all, but maybe there was some kind of, they're updating it where you can only do public rec. I have no idea. What do you guys think about that, Joe, Francine? And then we'll wrap up in a few minutes because we've gone almost an hour. Right? What do you think about AI?
I can see where it has its uses, but if I were a teacher, I'd be mad as hell if some kid came in with a paper that had been written with AI. I am sorry. That's not, you're not learning to think when you do that.
Yeah.
You're not learning anything. You're just letting a machine. I mean, I know how you do it. You can go to Chat GPT because I've tried it myself a couple of times just to see how it works. And you can give it some information and it'll spit some information back out to you about what you're talking about. And it does it it makes it sound as if it knows more than it really does know.
Right.
There's something about it that just doesn't feel quite right. I don't see any place for it in academia whatsoever. Just in day-to-day work, maybe, but outside of that, no.
I will tell you a funny thing you can do with it, though. A friend of mine who has a radio station a radio show had me on the other week, and I'll try to find whatever website this was he used. They will make up themes. I mean, you can put like Mary Green, Cheese Biscuit Queen, Kiss My Aspic, whatever, and it will write a theme song for you that is just hilarious.
All that.
So
that sounds fun.
And send it to y'all. But I'm kind of like Joe. I wouldn't want to use it for academia, but for a quick and dirty theme song, I thought it was pretty darn funny. So
that happened when I was at a training in Nashville. This was for travel, and we were with a specific vendor, and they do special gifts to the attendees or to guests, but ours was, we had a singer-songwriter come to the meeting, a profession that, I can't remember his name, and we put together, as a group of about 30 people, we put together a real live song, and it was called Let Down by Delta. And I don't mean, I don't mean any offense to Delta. They're a great airline, but at the time it was the most hilarious song ever, but I'll just leave it at that. So I think Chat GPT and all of those things are great for creativity, but not academia. I think we all agree on that. Joe, you're working on something. We want everyone to read your book if they have not out there, A Mariner's Tale by Joe Palmer and Mary Martha Green with an E on the end. It's great to see you again. And virtually, and I hope to see you in person. Joe, I hope to see you in person. And Francine, I hope to see you in person at some point in time.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm going to
So-
be up your way tomorrow and the next day. So if we can,
Right
maybe
on.
we might be able to catch each other for
All right.
a glass of
There's
iced tea or something.
hopefully it's not, well, it's muggy as hell right now. And I think that's the way it is going to be tomorrow too. But any other final comments or questions? We'll wrap up in about 2 minutes. I just want to thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mary Martha. And thank you, Francine. And I'll let Joe have the last word, Francine, and then Mary, go ahead and say just a last comment of whatever you want to say.
There, and this is something I don't know if a lot of people know or not. People do around here because I've talked about it. There was an option for film taken out on A Mariner's Tale a couple of years ago.
Oh,
So it's with an indie producer up in New York. And she's won a lot of awards for short feature films. She's never done a full-length feature film before, but she's trying to with this. And she's made a bit of progress on it. So keeping my hands crossed and my fingers crossed and my hands folded, hoping it happens.
I hope that happens for you too. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
That'd be exciting.
I would be excited. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
We would be. We would come to your premiere.
Yes.
I'm always thinking ahead for the next party.
For the walk down the red carpet, right?
Yeah, of course. I'm already looking for my dress.
I'd be happy just to
Me
have some
too.
carpet.
I don't have one that's that fancy yet. I'm
Me
sorry.
either. Good excuse to buy one though.
Yeah.
What would you like to say last, Mary?
I just appreciate being on. And I forgot to give a plug to my publisher, who's at the University of South Carolina Press, the University of South Carolina Press, my alma mater. And they published both my books, and hopefully we'll publish the third one. And I really appreciate y'all. They published a bunch of other great books, both cookbooks and all nonfiction, but hope y'all will check out their uscpress.com. And I really appreciate you having me on, and look forward to being with you again soon.
I
Yeah.
can't
Thank
wait
you.
for your book to arrive here because I've been dying to read it. It's like, I was so hoping to have this before we could talk about it tonight, but I'm really glad to be here, and I'm glad Mary was able to be on with us.
I was supposed to have come down and done something with Donna in the next couple of weeks, and I had to have a little bit of neck surgery, so we had to postpone it. So that might be, I'm sure she'll get something in her in soon. So
It should be in a couple of days.
Yeah.
He was real apologetic about it. Pam was actually in the store and said, I wanted a copy of it. She goes, they're in the warehouse. I got to order them.
well, I left a bunch.
I know where there's a few of them.
I was down there in February, so I'm glad to know and I left a bunch that were signed. So I'm glad to know they've sold all those. So that makes me feel good.
Apparently they have.
Good. Francine, what do you want to say? You got the last word. I thought Joe was going to have it, but we got interjected, whatever.
That's okay,
Francine.
Joe. It was great to meet you here. I loved your book.
Thank you.
Mary, I'm so excited to have seen you again here. I love doing book club with Susie. And Susie, you're my favorite Zoom on here, on live. When my book clubs are in person, that's a whole different thing. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I know.
and Mary, I'm hosting Christy Woodson Harvey on Sunday for a book party.
Oh, wow.
In
that'd be
person.
fun.
I know. I mean, she was supposed to come in 2020, in April of 2020. So we all know what happened. And Kathy Bennett said, I'll get her back. It's Father's Day. I'm a little worried about the attendance, but she assures me she's fine. So I've not met her in person. So I am super excited to meet her.
That's
So,
awesome.
That's a big
awesome.
weekend coming up.
Well,
I
you
got
guys,
another-
we've had a go ahead.
I said,
Go
that's what I'm going to Beaufort for. I got a book club to talk to on Thursday morning. So I'm excited. Anytime
I'm
I can
glad-
get it's a good day.
Yep, it's a fun area, that is for sure. So I just want to thank all of you for being on tonight. I should say all y'all.
Oh,
And
y'all.
Mary, I look forward to football season. How about them dogs? And I just hope everybody has a wonderful evening until we talk to each other again. Okay, I'm going to
Thank
end
you,
the
Susie.
live. And all righty, take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye,
Good
guys.
night. Thank
Good night.
you.
Thank
Good night.
you.